Good afternoon folks, or whatever time you may be watching this, and welcome to Lisa Loves. Today I'm going to do my February, I don't even know what month I'm in, my February catch up. So that's everything I watched in the month of February. I will try and make this as short as I can, but I only do one of these long videos each month now. So a lot of people had said they like sort of hearing about recent things that are on telly and whether they're worth a watch. So I thought, rather than weekly, I'll do this for you guys monthly and then some little bits in between. So let's get the old screen recorder going. So let's kick off the 1st of February with, this is one that's on Netflix at the moment. It's called The Massacre at the Stadium. Now this is, there's quite a famous singer. This involves Chilean protest singer Victor Jara. He's one of those people you either know or you don't. I personally didn't. He's very much about civil rights, about people's rights, and there was a massacre at a stadium. A lot of people were killed by officials, by army individuals, and this basically tries to uncover. His wife has worked for many, many years to try and get to the bottom of what happened, and it's just the fact that this famous singer actually was involved in the people that were killed that a lot more attention has been brought to it. It says there, the murder of Chilean protest singer Victor Jara was blamed on an official in Pinochet's army. Now in exile, he tries to exonerate himself. So it was an interesting watch. I give that one a 3.5 out of 5. I do like my true crime. I do like educating myself about what's going on in the world. That was an interesting watch. On the same night, I watched Black 47. I'm trying to work out what that's... Oh god, yeah. This is one about the famine in Ireland, which is obviously why I watched it. There's a lot of Irish language in this also. It's mostly in English, but we do have quite a bit of Irish language in there. I did learn Irish for about a year in school, and then when we got into second year, I don't know what, it's all different. It's really strange in America, the different grades. First year in the UK is the first year that you go to secondary school, so you would be like 12, 13. Second year, obviously, you're about 13 or 14. So yeah, I did learn Irish for a year, and then we got the option, continue learning Irish or start to learn German. I went down the German route, which I don't regret, but I do still know a little bit of Irish. So yeah, this is quite a harrowing one about the famine in Britain, about what happened about, sorry, the famine in Ireland, and about how the British treated the Irish back then. It's eye-opening, and a lot of people maybe don't quite know the history of Ireland and of the famine, so it is worth a watch if you're interested in that. If you don't have an interest in Ireland or the subject matter, you probably find it quite dull. It is quite a harrowing watch. 1847, Ireland's in the grip of the Great Famine that ravaged the country for 2 long years. Feeney, a hardened Irish ranger who has been fighting for the British Army abroad, returns home to reunite with his family, only to discover the cruelest reality, a black land where death reigns. So yeah, he's sort of like seen as a traitor by his own people because he's fighting for the British, and the British are putting them through this. And obviously he's seen by the British as just your typical Irish scum that needs to be found and needs to be killed as a deserter. So interesting movie, Black 47. I think, if I'm not wrong, Kermit's Ghost on his channel mentioned that one. I hope you enjoy it, Alan, if you watch it. And I'm very glad to see that you're continuing your channel, so yeah. Number two, on the 2nd I watched The Cannibal Club. This was a review for Geek Legion of Doom. And as always, I'm not going to go into any detail here because obviously Leo lets me see these movies and review them for his channel, and it wouldn't really be fair to be doing that here. It was interesting, the gore that was in it was spectacular, there wasn't quite enough of it. If you want to know more about The Cannibal Club, I will pop a link in the description and you can go check that out on Geek Legion of Doom. It's a foreign film also, so yeah, subtitles. On the 3rd, I rewatched The Meg because my husband and son hadn't seen it. I went to the cinema to see it. I wanted Isaac to go see it, but he was too frightened, so he didn't go. So I went myself, and they both watched it, and they both really enjoyed it. It's just a fun movie. It's not meant to be, you know, a blockbuster. It's just fun. I enjoyed The Meg for what it was. I know it gets a lot of criticism, but I liked it. Velvet Buzzsaw I watched on the 5th. This one gets quite a lot of criticism. Obviously it's set in the art scene amongst very pretentious arty-farty people. Jake Gyllenhaal, can you hear that? Isaac's trying to get a yogurt out of his dad before tea. Tea is probably about half an hour away. He's been told no, he's asking numerous times. So yeah, this is, you see, I tell people that I send voice messages and things to, the capability of listening to or replying to voice messages or recording video in my family is quite limited, because there's so much shouting, misbehaviour, nosiness, it's ridiculous. Right, anyway, back to Velvet Buzzsaw. Jake Gyllenhaal, is that right? Gyllenhaal is excellent in this, but then he's fantastic in anything. We've also got, from Hereditary, what's her name, that didn't win an Oscar, that was just, she was robbed. She's in this. I'm not going to try and remember her name. Hang on, I could, Toni Collette, is that it? I enjoyed aspects of this. The paintings in this are supposedly like evil or possessed or haunted. I don't want to go into too much detail if you haven't seen the movie. I would say it's worth a watch. I enjoyed those aspects of it. They were very good. I thought it got a lot of unnecessary criticism, but I do feel it could have been a lot better, but it was a decent watch. So yeah, Velvet Buzzsaw. Next is The Hate You Give. Now, I'd been wanting to watch this one for a while. I give this one 4 stars out of 5. So, raised in a poverty-stricken slum, a 16-year-old girl named Star now attends a suburban prep school. After she witnesses a police officer shoot her unarmed best friend, she's torn between her 2 very different worlds as she tries to speak her truth. Very, very, very good movie, this. Obviously her parents want a better life for her, so they've put her into this very sort of posh private school or grammar school, and she's the only girl of colour there that I could see anyway. And she's very much living 2 different lives, and this atrocity happens. Her boyfriend is white also, that she goes to school with, but this lad that was her best friend for many years, they had a bit of a thing about each other, and there was the potential that they were going to get together. They were sitting in a car chatting, and this happens. I'll not go into any detail about the ins and outs of it, but it's well worth a watch. Very interesting, very eye-opening. There's a lot of movies like this coming out at the moment, detailing what's going on in certain, or what went on in certain areas of America, and it is, my recording has stopped, and it is certainly very eye-opening to me and very distressing. It does, I try not to get political in these things, but you know me, I say what I think. Irish people in the north of Ireland, I think, can relate in a way to a lot of what people of colour in America go through with police officers, because everyone in Ireland that's Catholic is automatically assumed to be a Republican or a supporter of the IRA, which is of course not the case. And Irish people, or people that are Catholic Irish in Northern Ireland for a long time, were treated like criminals by the British Army and the police force, and shot in the back, and they had their houses ransacked for no reason. I even remember as a child going on holiday to the south of Ireland every year, which is the only place we went as a family. I never went abroad, we didn't have much money. So every year we would have a holiday for a week in the south of Ireland, and at the time there was the border. And I remember as a child passing through the border and the army checkpoints and all the army men with the guns and them shining a torch into the back seat in my dad's face. Who are you and where are you? You know, you basically didn't get treated like a human. Thankfully things aren't quite so bad now, but during the Troubles, which I grew up through, being an Irish Catholic in a British occupied country was not the easiest. Obviously I'm not saying it's as bad as the situation in America for people of colour, but we kind of have that empathy as to how that can feel. Well, you remember when the signs used to be up in shops with no blacks, it also said no Irish, so we can relate in a way. Us Irish scum we get everywhere. Jesus. Anyway, The Hate You Give, very, very good film. On the 7th, I rewatched A Star Is Born, my #1 movie of 2018. I still love it just as much. It's very moving. I really feel for people that get spoilers about this movie before they see it, which I know, I was going to say Geek Legion of Doom, which I know Alan from Kermit's Ghost found out stuff about this movie before he watched it, which is a crying out shame. But and the soundtrack to this is just beautiful. This beat Bohemian Rhapsody into #1 for my #1 movie, which is saying something given what Queen fan I am. But Bradley Cooper and Lady Gaga just, oh, amazing. And the soundtrack, especially the song I'll Always Remember Us This Way is my favourite song of that soundtrack. It's incredible. Okay. On the 8th, I watched Widows, which I wanted to see because I love How to Get Away with Murder, and what's her name? Viola Davis, who stars in that, is in this, and she's a very strong actress. So I really wanted to see it. It's got a fantastic cast. Look, Michelle Rodriguez, I love that lady in films. Colin Farrell, Robert Duvall, Liam Neeson. The least amount said about Liam Neeson right now, the better. From my hometown, went to school with my parents. I know his family personally. Very disappointed in Liam, unfortunately. What can you say? So Widows, really interesting, well worth a watch. A movie about a group of male criminals who meet a grisly end and their wives decide to carry out their last job. Interesting. I won't say any more than that. Bit twisty, this one, but really, really well worth watching. Same night I watched Pyewacket. This is after, now who was talking about this on their channel? Was it Nightmare Maven? There was Felicia Lobo, Girly Gore, was talking about this one, Pyewacket. I had never actually seen it, and I liked what she was saying. So this is about a young teenager who has lost her father. Her and her mother's relationship is not too hot. They move. She doesn't want to move. She wants to be near to her friends. They're all very sort of emo goth types. She's sort of like a bit into the black occult. And her relationship with her mother just gets worse and worse throughout the movie. Her mother is played by Laurie from The Walking Dead. What's her name? Is her real name Laurie? Laurie Holden. She was in The Walking Dead, the blonde one. Oh, just ignore me. I know what I mean myself. So yeah, she decides to evoke a black magic ritual, calling forth a creature called a Pyewacket, which is like a witch of sorts, to kill her mother. Interesting. Some really genuinely creepy scenes in this. It's a slow burn. I love that sort of thing. I like the time for character development. So I would really highly recommend Pyewacket. Check it out. On the 9th, A Little Battle Angel. I have done a review for this, a sort of vloggy going to the cinema car review. Incredible. I give that 4 out of 5. The CGI in this is just out of this world. Really interesting. I'm not a fan of CGI unless it's used in this way, and this is just, it blew me away. I loved it. Go check out A Little Battle Angel, my review. I will try to remember to put these links in the description. Not that I think any of you probably use it, but we shall do anyway. On the 10th, I watched 2 movies. The first one's The Rachel Divide. I could talk for a really long time about this. I was going to do an individual vlog about this. I may still do, I'm not sure. Let's explain to you who she is. Rachel, how is it pronounced? Dolezal? Became infamous when she was unmasked as a white woman passing for black so thoroughly that she had become the head of her local NAACP chapter. This portrait cuts through the very public controversy to reveal Dolezal's motivations. I started this documentary with one viewpoint. It's like, this stupid bitch, really? She's white, she's from white parents, and she's trying to pose as black. I ended it with quite a different viewpoint when we get her history, when we get what her parents were like, what they put her through. Her parents adopted a lot of black children, and she was pretty much left to do a lot of the raising of these kids. Her parents were very religious, very just nasty pieces of work, both of them, very abusive. And it's very clear that this has left psychological scars with what's her name, Rachel. And as she grew, she felt more connected to her black brothers and sisters. She clearly wanted to retreat from everything that she felt she was and her parents. And it wasn't the right call to consider herself black. Of course it wasn't, because she's not black. But this lady has done an awful lot of good for her community, for the black community. She's spoken up in an awful lot of situations. She's taken an awful lot of flack, as is her family. But a question that was raised, and it's a valid question, and this is a question that I found myself thinking about as I watched this documentary. You may disagree, but please watch this. It's called The Rachel Divide. We have the situation with people that are trans, obviously people that were born in the wrong body, people that associate as male if they're, you know, even though they've got a female body, and vice versa. and that is an accepted part of culture, and we understand that that can happen. But this girl from a very, very early age associated with, it sounds really strange, and you're probably thinking, you silly bitch, you know, you're saying this because you're white. She's so strongly associated with the culture and everything that stood with coming from a black background due to her upbringing, due to her siblings, that she identified as being black. Now, that sounds really strange, but apparently there are a lot of people in this situation. Someone interviewed her, it was a young black male presenter, and during this interview he actually said, I associate as a white female. Now that sounds weird, that sounds messed up, but if we can accept that a man can be born into a woman's body, why can we not accept that someone of colour can be born into a white person's body? It sounds, I know I can hear people shouting at the screen, but this really, really challenged my viewpoint. I did start this very much against this lady and thinking, how could you do this? How could you even imagine? I think a lot of the problem that a lot of the black people had was, how could she possibly, she can walk into stores or go places and do things and she's not treated the way they are, and that's very true and she accepts that. But it's a weird one. I came away from it not quite knowing how I felt, but not feeling quite as vociferously as I did to start with. It was interesting. I would encourage you to go watch it all in its entirety and tell me what you think. Did it challenge your perception or not? So the same day, granddaddy daycare, this doesn't even bear thinking about. I thought this was going to be about granddads looking after kids. This is about a man who's an author who's stuck in a rut, who finds out that he can make money by having somewhere for old people to go, like a daycare centre. So that's what he does. That's all that it's about. And the acting is atrocious. The storyline is so syrupy sweet it made me feel nauseous. No. The 12th, Abnormal Attraction. Haha. Right. I put a review on that. This is a Geek Legion of Doom one. I really didn't like this in any way. And I did a review for Geek Legion of Doom. Now, anyone familiar with IMDb will know that sometimes the scores are not worth trusting. This one was coming in IMDb at an 8.5 and it had loads of 10s. And when you read it, you're thinking, yeah, you're very clearly associated with the makers of this. You've acted in it. You're something to do with this movie. So I reviewed it very honestly, and I felt very generously. I wasn't as I would have been a lot more cutting had it been a review for my channel. But you know, you do have a duty of care when you're representing another channel to be professional and to not be cruel for cruelty's sake. Someone came on and ripped me a new arsehole for what I said about this movie. Very, very clearly someone associated with it. Loads of dislikes almost immediately. I know Geek Legion of Dooms was one of the first online video reviews for this movie. So the people associated very clearly had been waiting and looking out for someone to review this movie. I happened to be the one that did it, and it was not appreciated how that review went down. So guys, I encourage you to watch it and let me know what you think of it. Let me tell you, in a world where mythical creatures are real, monsters and humans are forced to coexist, and as prejudice and insecurity pulls everyone apart, 3 separate storylines manage to come together. Sounds pretty interesting. It's got the audacity of trying to put across an important message about racism using cyclopses and just, I can't even. On the Same Day, Don't Go. I'm trying to remember what this one was about. Ah, yes, this is an Irish one. It had Stephen Dorff and Melissa George. You probably remember as Angel in Home and Away. They lose their daughter, and he becomes convinced that he has found a way to travel back in time, to change time, and to get his daughter back. Everyone thinks he's gone mad. He becomes a bit of an alcoholic. It's interesting. It raises a lot of interesting questions. It's very much a slow burn, but I felt it was well worth a watch. So that's called Don't Go, directed by David Gleason. 13th, Honeymoon. This is one that I saw on Bitches of Horror channel. These two girls' channel is criminally underrated. They talk about a lot of really obscure horror, really decent horror. They're from Sweden. The channel is in English, but just really, really informed girls, I would thoroughly recommend their channel. They were talking about this movie Honeymoon, which I hadn't heard of. It's a 2014 movie and it stars Rose Leslie, who many people will know as, what was her character in Game of Thrones? She's married to the guy that plays Jon Snow. It's Ygritte. She played Ygritte in Game of Thrones, the redhead girl that gets with Jon Stark. This movie, Honeymoon, is about a young couple finds their late country honeymoon descend into chaos after Paul finds Bea wandering and disorientated in the middle of the night. This isn't at all what you would think. It's completely removed from what you may imagine. I'm not going to tell you a thing about it other than it was interesting. It's a bit of a slow burn, but really interesting. If you're a horror fan, check it out. How do other people like Spooky Astronauts do an entire month of what they've seen and manage to put the video out at 15 minutes? I can't do it. I feel like I'm not even telling you half of stuff about these, but A Hole in the Ground. This one really appealed to me. This is an Irish horror movie. This one I was made aware of from the horror show. I've put That's Not Right. I've added the wrong hole in the ground to my... That's useful. This is it's like the similar concept to The Hollow Child, or possibly maybe even The Prodigy. It's about a young boy that disappears, comes back, and he's not as he went away, like a changeling. I was disappointed. I enjoyed it, but it wasn't as awesome as I thought it would be, and all the best bits were in the trailer. 15th, The Favourite. I watched that. Obviously Olivia Colman won the Best Actress award, Oscar. Very interested to see this as I love the cast. Rachel Weisz is in here, much to my husband's joy, and Emma Stone is in this. I enjoyed this. I could see that it was an excellent movie. It's just not my cup of tea, but the acting performances were amazing, fantastic. So she's obviously playing Queen Anne, who's a bit... I'm trying to think. I can't think of words to describe things without saying something that's maybe politically incorrect, so I'm not going to say it. She's a bit away with the fairies. Close relationship between Queen Anne, played by Olivia Colman, and Sarah Churchill, played by Rachel Weisz, is threatened by the arrival of Sarah's cousin Abigail Hill, played by Emma Stone, resulting in bitter rivalry between the two cousins to be the Queen's favourite. And the favourite doesn't just mean friend, there's a little bit more to it than friendship, shall we say. So there's a bit of lady love going on there. That's the only way I'll put it. So yeah, The Favourite, obviously well worth a watch. It wasn't as amazing as I expected, but it's just not I'm not into period drama. So on the 15th, The Vanishing. I have done an individual review for this, which I will try to remember to link. I strongly recommend this. This has got Gerard Butler in, amongst some others, but he's the big name. And it covers 3 lighthouse keepers on a lighthouse off the coast of Scotland. This is a true story, but the 3 real lighthouse keepers disappeared. No one ever knew what happened to them. This movie covers that disappearance, but it puts forward a hypothesis about what could have happened. This clearly didn't happen because there's too much being added to it, but it was an interesting adaptation of a true story elaborated on. I loved it. I thought it was a real character piece. It's quite slow. It's just right up my street. I like to see a good strong story, strong acting, strong characters, and I'm happy, and it's got all of the above. That's called The Vanishing, also known as The Keepers. The Kid Who Would Be Keen. I went to the cinema to see this with Isaac. It's like a Harry Potter-esque style movie centred around King Arthur. Let me see what it says. Old school magic meets a modern world when young Alex stumbles upon the mythical sword Excalibur. He soon unites his friends and enemies, and they become knights who join forces with the legendary wizard Merlin. Together they must save mankind from the wicked enchantress Morgana and her army of supernatural warriors. This is set in present day. The young lad that's going to be Arthur is bullied at school. He manages to sort of pull people together to go on this quest to convince them that he's not nuts. It's a fun movie. It's a family movie. It's a movie for kids. Isaac loved it. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was quite a lot of fun. So yeah, The Kid Who Would Be Keen. 47 Meters Down. I watched this. Aaron, listen to me. Leo from Geek Legion of Doom. Actually, the reason I wasn't aware of this, it popped up on Netflix, and I remember Leo saying that this is one of the movies that he reviewed initially, and his quote got used on the trailer for this movie. I think I'm right in saying that. And he'd said, he did a really interesting video about how quotes are misconstrued by the companies and how they use something. I'll give you an example. He reviewed a movie that he thought was terrible. And he said, don't watch this in the dark because it's so boring you will fall asleep. The company took the quote, don't watch this in the dark, full stop. So they can take what you say completely out of context. And he was talking about reviewing 47 Meters Down. And he said he really enjoyed it. It's one of the best shark movies he has seen since Jaws. And he got torn to pieces on some site, probably Reddit or something like that, with people saying, how could you say this is better than Jaws? He didn't. He said he enjoyed it and it's one of the best he has seen since. Obviously it's not as good as Jaws, but so anyway, it piqued my interest and I watched it and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really effective. I thought it was, like you said, you get divers that are saying, oh, this is wrong, that wouldn't happen. You know, weary willies always have to pick holes in everything. If you're not going to do that, it's an interesting movie. It follows two sisters. One of them is a program I used to watch that I loved called This Is Us. And the girl that stars in that, what's her name? It's either Claire Holt or Mandy Moore. I can't remember which one. They play two sisters who end up going for a shark. We go in the cage diving. And something happens, something goes wrong, as it inevitably will, and they are stuck in the middle of the sea in this cage. What's going to happen? It's quite tense in places. I always feel very claustrophobic when I watch movies set mostly underwater. I find myself holding my breath and all sorts. It's quite distressing for me. So this one was a good watch for me. I really enjoyed it and I would recommend it. So it's 47 Meters Down. Next I watched The Golem. This is one that quite a few people on YouTube had done reviews about. Aaron from Screen Stars and Jen's Reviews from the Grave being two. And they had both given quite positive viewpoints to it. So I thought, oh, and I think Leo did one for this as well. So reimagining of an old mystical folklore that follows a woman in a tight-knit Jewish community that is besieged by foreign invaders. She conjures a dangerous creature to protect them, but it may be more evil than she ever imagined. The Golem is a big thing in Prague. Obviously everyone that knows me knows Prague has been my favourite holiday destination. I love it. The Golem's very much a feature of folklore and myth there, so I was very interested to see this. It was really enjoyable. The acting performances were really strong. What's that? I think it was a foreign movie. I'm sure it was. It doesn't even say here. I could probably open up things and it would tell me, but I'm not going to. But it was good. It was interesting. There's a young child actor in this that was really impressive. I would recommend it. It wasn't absolutely fantastic, but it was a good watch. So that's The Golem. 22nd, we're getting there, folks. There's only 28 days in February. 22nd, The Possession of Hannah Grace. I abandoned this. I couldn't watch it. I'm not going to say anymore. This was just awful. My good buddy Strange Monkey from Three from the Grave is doing a series on his channel at the moment called Worst of the Worst, where him and sometimes his friend Cisco review just really shitty movies, and they reviewed this one and it popped up today and it made me laugh because it was just spot on. Awful movie, The Possession of Hannah Grace. 23rd, The Lego Movie Part 2. That was with 11 8-year-old boys. We took them for Isaac's 8th birthday. It was an experience to say the least. It was fun. I actually enjoyed this better than the first one. I know I'm in the minority of saying that. I preferred the songs in this one. I preferred the humour in this one. There was just lots of little nods to certain things and I found it... I loved that they had Abraham Lincoln on the Iron Throne. That just made me laugh. So yeah, Lego Movie Part 2. Strongly recommend that one. 24th, The Photographer of Mauthausen. Watch this movie, folks, honestly. I did an individual review for this if you want to check it out. This is a Spanish movie. It's also got German language as it's set in a concentration camp in Germany. Very strong movie, very harrowing movie. It's a true story and one that should be told. It's about a young 20-year-old photographer called Francesc Bosch, who is the Spanish were basically sent to this concentration camp when the Spanish Civil War ended, when they lost, and these Spanish people were sent as a present to the Germans, to the Third Reich, as a free workforce. and they made up a certain percentage of the concentration camp. And this young man was a photographer, and he set about trying to save images to bring out of the camp to show the world what was going on. The Germans tried to have them all destroyed, and he risked his life to get those images out. He ended up actually playing a part in the Nuremberg trial, and his photographs were used as evidence. Very, very brave young man, and the story is just completely true. Really interesting. It's on Netflix right now. The Photographer of White House, and I have done a video where I go into more detail if you want to check that out, but I would strongly suggest you watch it. It's eye-opening. It's 27th. We've only got 2 movies left, folks. 3 Girls. I probably will do an individual review about this one, actually. This is on Netflix, but it's a BBC made, it's a British drama, 3-part drama. Whew. Let me just read you here. To give you a bit of context, my husband's from the north of England. He's from Yorkshire. I lived in England for 10 years. We lived in areas where this sort of thing is prolific. It's a very sensitive subject, but it's one that needs to be spoken about. And like I say, I probably will do a separate video about this at a later date. The story of 3 girls who were victims in the 2012 grooming and sex trafficking case in Rochdale, for which 9 men were convicted and sentenced. The drama explores how these girls were groomed, how they were ignored by authorities directly responsible for protecting them, and I can't open the next page, how they eventually made whatever. But the most shocking thing about this, obviously these groups of men that were grooming these young girls, that's shocking enough and very disturbing. What's more shocking and disturbing is that the authorities, that Child Protective Services and the police ignored this and didn't want to know. They didn't want to know because these groups of men were Pakistani men and they did not want to create a race relations issue, so they ignored this and pretended it wasn't happening. To add something to that, Darren, my husband, when he was a teenager, this is going back 20 years. No, it wasn't, more. Telling you how old my husband is. This is going back 25, 30 years? This is going back 25 to 30 years ago, long before all this. He was in a police station in Keighley, which is in West Yorkshire. It's close to Bradford. He had just been given a beating up by a group of Asian males, just for no reason. They just fancied giving him a kicking, and he was taken to the police station. The whole case was dropped because of the background of the young lad that was responsible for stamping on his head. But while he was in that police station, there was a young girl there who couldn't have been more than 14 or 15 who was screaming and shouting. Her mother was there with her, and she was shouting that they had raped her, that they had attacked her, that they had done whatever. Why are you not listening to me? Why are you not going to arrest them? Why don't you care what happened to me? And the police told her to shut up and stop making a scene. And basically, this goes back that far, 30 years, this goes back at least. But all of this, that this particular thing is about, has probably come to light in the past 5 to 10 years. But this has been going on for a lot longer and continues to go on all over the UK. And obviously you don't want to be seen to be racist, so you can't generalise, but it is all... Now, I will say most rapes are carried out by white British males. That is a statistic, that most rapes are carried out by white British males. Sorry, in the UK, sorry. But this grooming, this groups where they pass the girls around groups of men, it goes on in the Asian culture. There are Pakistani grooming gangs, but people cannot speak out and don't wish to speak out and don't wish to push the issue lest they be accused of racism. So it's a very sensitive subject, and it's one I probably will do a video about. I'll probably get a whole lot of hate about, but I'm the least racist person you will ever meet. I abhor all forms of racism. As a matter of fact, I removed someone very recently from my life who showed themselves to be a bully and a racist, and I don't think about it for a second. You get cut straight out if you're a racist, if you're homophobic, if you have a problem with people that are trans, any of those things. Don't, bye-bye, not interested. But there you go, that's another thing entirely. Final film. Let's end on a low, shall we? Isn't it romantic? How long have I been... Oh, Jesus, this is another long one, isn't it? You know when you just feel like watching something where you don't have to think? Well, that's my excuse. Rebel Wilson's in this. So the reason I watched this is because it was taking the piss out of romantic comedies. I'm not a fan of this sort of thing. For a long time, Natalie, an Australian architect living in New York, has always believed that what she has seen in rom-coms is all fantasy. But after thwarting a mugger at the subway station, she's knocked out while fleeing. Natalie wakes up and discovers that her life has suddenly become her worst nightmare, a romantic comedy. So this made me think, yeah, that would be my worst nightmare too. There's Molly outside shouting now for you. Go on, Molly, give us a bark. Oh, she's finished. Oh. So yeah, this is about a girl that hates all of that and becomes stuck in that environment. It's just one of those that, yeah, you can watch it, yeah, it may entertain you vaguely, but you'll think, that was a waste of an hour and a half, which is pretty much where I'm coming from. So that's everything I watched in February. I'm not going to bore you with any more stuff. I have been contributing a vast portion of my free time to Red Dead Redemption 2, which I am in love with. I did do a video about it. I deleted it because it was in the car and it wasn't the best sound quality. I probably will do another one at some stage. But yeah, Red Dead Redemption 2 is my life right now. I'm just immersed. Arthur. My Arthur. Got some bad news about my Arthur recently, which I'm not really impressed about, but we'll not go into that. So yeah, let me know in the comments if you've seen any of these movies, if they sound vaguely interesting. If you really disagree with anything I said, you can fire away down there if you want, but you're not going to change my viewpoint by being nasty. This happens. It's like, oh god, it's like, oh, you're talking shite. That may be your opinion, it's not mine, but there you go. So let me know in the comments if you've seen any of the movies I've discussed, what you think. Thank you for watching, all of you who religiously do. I appreciate you like you wouldn't believe. And I will sign off now. It's over and out from Lisa Lives.